The sleek vessels of the Zathkari Imperium glided through the darkness of space, their hulls gleaming under the light of an unfamiliar star. Captain Vexthal stood on the command deck of the Relentless Claw, his tall, insectoid form reflected in the polished surfaces around him. His compound eyes scanned the tactical display where unusual energy signatures pulse from an unmapped sector. "Magnify Quadrant 7, he ordered, mandibles clicking with anticipation. The display shifted, revealing a modestly sized colony nestled on a verdant world. Dome-like structures connected by transport tubes housed what their scanners identified as bipedal creatures called humans. The settlement was clearly organized, technologically competent, but ultimately insignificant compared to the might of the seven-system Zathkari Imperium. They appear to possess rudimentary space travel capabilities, Science Officer Mechtel reported, antennae twitching as she studied the data. But their defenses are minimal, estimating population at approximately 2,000 individuals. Vexthal chittered with amusement. Another primitive species claiming territory they cannot possibly defend. Establish communication. For 3 standard cycles, the Zathkari observed the colony while diplomatic channels remained stubbornly silent. Finally, a response came. A human representative, surprisingly small and soft-featured, appeared on the communication sphere. "Greetings, Zathkari delegation," a human said, voice translated through the ship's systems. "I am Administrator Elena Vasquez of Proxima Colony. We wish to establish peaceful relations, but we must decline your offer of protection status. We are a sovereign outpost of the human sphere." Vexthal's inner eyelids narrowed. No species rejected Zathkari protection. It was inconceivable. "Your colony occupies a strategic position," Vexthal replied. "The resources of this world are too valuable to be left in undeveloped hands. Accept our terms, or face the consequences." The human's expression hardened, showing no fear. "We will defend what is ours. This conversation is over." The communication terminated abruptly, leaving Vexthal momentarily stunned. He had never encountered such defiance from a clearly inferior civilization. "Establish contact with High Command," he ordered, rage building in his thorax. The imposing visage of Supreme Commander Wraith filled the sphere moments later. "Report, Captain. The humans have rejected our generous offer," Vexthal explained. "They show unusual defiance for their technological level." Greth's mandibles clicked slowly, thoughtfully. "Then make an example of them. One decisive attack should be sufficient to secure their compliance. The Imperium requires that world's resources." "By your command," Vexthal responded, already formulating battle plans. The Relentless Claw and its 3 escort vessels descended toward the colony the next day, weapons charging as they entered the atmosphere. Vexthal expected token resistance at most, perhaps a few primitive projectile weapons or low-yield energy barriers. Instead, precise defensive fire erupted from concealed emplacements around the colony. 3 of his smaller vessels exploded before his stunned eyes, their debris raining down on the landscape below. "Impossible," his tactical officer exclaimed. "Their weapons are far more advanced than our intelligence suggested." A streak of light shot from the colony center, a distress beacon, accelerating rapidly away from the planet. "Continue the attack," Vexthal ordered, mandibles clicking furiously. Full bombardment of their central dome. No survivors. The Relentless Claw's main cannons fired, shattering the colony's habitat dome. Atmosphere vented explosively into space, carrying with it the bodies of hundreds of colonists. As his damaged ships pulled away, Vexthal dismissed the distress beacon's trajectory toward a distant blue planet. The Zathkari intelligence had classified it as uninhabitable due to strange radiation signatures, not recognizing the electromagnetic footprint of an advanced civilization. A civilization that had just lost 1,500 of its citizens to an unprovoked attack. Captain Vexthal had made a terrible mistake, and humanity was about to respond. Admiral Helena Chen smiled as her daughter Maya blew out 7 candles on her birthday cake. The apartment overlooking New San Francisco Bay was filled with children's laughter and the warm glow of celebration. Chen had scheduled this rare day off months in advance, promising her daughter that nothing would interrupt their time together. Then the alert chimed in her neural implant. The room around her seemed to freeze as the distress signal from Proxima Colony flooded her consciousness. Images of destruction, sensor readings of weapons fire, and the final transmissions from Administrator Vasquez poured directly into her mind. 1,500 colonists dead in an unprovoked attack. The cake knife trembled in her hand. "Mommy, is everything okay?" Maya asked, noticing her mother's sudden stillness. Chen knelt down, meeting her daughter's eyes. "I have to go, sweetie. Doobie calls." She kissed her daughter's forehead, whispering, "Be good for Grandma. I'll be back as soon as I can." 3 hours later, Admiral Chen strode into the United Earth Defense Council chambers beneath Mount Cheyenne. Representatives from every continent and major off-world colony had assembled, their faces grim as they watched the final footage from Proxima play across the holographic display. The destruction of the main habitat dome, the bodies floating in space, the Zafkari ships retreating. "This is the complete intelligence package," Chen explained, her voice steady despite her rage. The attack was unprovoked. Administrator Vasquez rejected their demand for surrender, and they responded with overwhelming force. The council sat in stunned silence until Fleet Admiral Takahashi spoke. "What do we know about these Zafkari?" Chen gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show the insectoid aliens. Preliminary analysis suggests they're an expansionist empire with territory spanning approximately 7 star systems. Their technology appears advanced, particularly their weapon systems, but shows various inefficiencies our engineers are already analyzing. The chamber lights dimmed as an incoming transmission was detected. "We're receiving a message on all frequencies," the communications officer announced. "It's being broadcast toward Earth from the edge of our system." A holographic display shifted again, revealing the mandible-clicking visage of a Zafkari official. "Inhabitants of Earth," the translated voice began. "I am Supreme Commander Kareth of the Zafkari Imperium. Your colony has been punished for its defiance. The Imperium claims this sector and all resources within it. Surrender your remaining outposts and pledge fealty to the Imperium, or face extinction. You have 1 standard cycle to comply." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in silence. Then, almost simultaneously, the representatives began to laugh. It wasn't humor. It was the cold, disbelieving laughter of a predator who has been mistaken for prey. "They think Proxima was our major settlement," Councillor Mbeki from the African Union said. "They have no idea what they've done." "Show them," Chen said, manipulating the stellar map with practiced gestures. The display expanded, revealing humanity's true domain. 30 star systems, hundreds of colonies, and a military-industrial complex that spanned from Mercury to the Kuiper Belt. "They've only encountered our furthest outpost," Chen explained. "They have no concept of what they've awakened." The vote for war was unanimous. As Chen strode toward the command center, intelligence files on the Zafkari flashed before her eyes. A conquest-driven species that had subjugated several smaller civilizations, never facing significant resistance. Their technology, impressive but flawed, focused on intimidation rather than sustained warfare. She entered the launch bay where her staff waited at attention. Commander Rivera handed her the operational plans they'd begun drafting the moment the distress signal arrived. "They judged us by our edge," Chen murmured, reviewing the documents. "Now they'll meet our center." Within 24 hours, the largest combat fleet in human history began assembling in Earth orbit. Operation Thunderstrike was about to commence. Commander Vexthal basked in the adulation of the crowds lining the grand boulevards of Car Prime. His victory parade wound through the capital city's ceremonial district, where jubilant citizens clicked their mandibles in the traditional Zafkari expression of approval. Newly promoted for his successful subjugation of the human colony, Vexthul stood tall on the command platform of a hovering ceremonial barge. The Imperium prevails, he called out, his amplified voice echoing across the gathered throngs. Another world for our glorious expansion. Later, in the High Command Strategic Chamber, Vexthul presented his report on the human species. They possess some technological capabilities, but lack the martial spirit of the Zafkari. He explained, manipulating the holographic display to show footage of the colony's destruction. When faced with superior force, they attempted to flee rather than fight properly. Their defenses, while temporarily troublesome, were quickly overwhelmed. Supreme Commander Kareth's antennae twitched with satisfaction. And this, Earth, what intelligence do we have on their homeworld? Our long-range scans indicate a populated planet with moderate defenses, Vexthul responded confidently. Nothing our battlecruisers cannot handle. I recommend a 3-vessel attack force to secure their surrender. Begin preparations, Kareth ordered. We will launch in 6 temporal cycles. Commander Vexthul will lead the expedition as reward for his victory. 3 weeks later, as Vexthul enjoyed the privileges of his elevated status in his new estate, alarms blared throughout the Kara system. He was rushed to the Defense Command Center, where chaos reigned among the normally disciplined Zafkari officers. Report, he demanded, mandibles clicking nervously. Unknown energy signatures at the edge of our defensive perimeter. The sensor officer responded, compound eyes wide with alarm. Configuration unknown, but massive in scale. The main view screen flickered to life, showing impossible readings. Vessels were appearing from what the Zafkari had thought was empty space, human vessels. Not small colony ships, but massive carriers that dwarfed the largest Zafkari battlecruisers. How did they find us? Vexthul whispered, his exoskeleton seeming to shrink around him. How did they get here so quickly? Aboard the UES Indomitable, Admiral Chen stood on the command bridge, her uniform crisp and her expression resolute as she gazed at the tactical display showing the Zafkari homeworld. All vessels in position, Admiral, her executive officer reported. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. The Zafkari have only just detected our presence. Chen nodded. Send the fleet-wide order. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. Priority targets are military installations, shipyards, and fuel processing facilities. Civilian casualties are to be minimized. Across 3 Zafkari systems, human stealth vessels materialized from fold space. Precision strikes crippled orbital shipyards, weapons platforms, and fuel depots. The Zafkari defensive fleets scrambled only after the attacking ships had completed their primary objectives. By the time their vessels were mobilized, the human fleet had vanished back into the void, leaving destruction in their wake. In the High Command's emergency session, Vexthul stared in disbelief at footage of advanced human warships decimating their outer defenses. Their weapons were unlike anything in the Imperium's arsenal, targeted, efficient, and devastating. This cannot be, he protested, his voice rising with panic. They were primitives. They had one small colony. Supreme Commander Kareth's compound eyes fixed on Vexthul with cold fury. Your intelligence was clearly flawed. These are not the actions of a primitive species. Cold realization washed over Vexthul as he watched a human vessel effortlessly neutralize a Zafkari defense platform with weapons of extraordinary precision. The small settlement he had attacked wasn't humanity's homeworld or main force. It was just an outpost of a vastly more powerful civilization. And now, they had brought war to the heart of the Imperium. Find out everything about them, Kareth ordered. Everything. And prepare our people for war. Captain Maverick's reconnaissance vessel, the Shadow Seeker, drifted through the outer Sol system, cloaked by the Zafkari's most advanced stealth technology. As the Empire's foremost intelligence gatherer, he had been dispatched on an urgent mission. Learn everything possible about the suddenly threatening human species. Maintain emission silence, he ordered his crew of 12 elite scouts. Passive sensors only. The first signs of human activity appeared near the gas giant Jupiter, massive orbital platforms surrounded by smaller vessels. Meverek's antennae twitched nervously as his sensors catalogued the scale of human industry. Shipyards encircling Mars, defense platforms orbiting Venus, mining operations throughout an asteroid belt suddenly pivoting to military production. Magnify Quadrant 6, he instructed, mandibles clicking anxiously as the ship's systems revealed a vessel under construction that could house the entire Zafkari battle fleet in its launch bay. Impossible, he whispered, his exoskeleton seeming to contract around him in fear. His second-in-command, Tixera, studied the readings with growing horror. Sir, we're detecting fold space communications across the system. Their technology is far beyond our intelligence estimates. The Shadow Seeker continued its covered journey, recording everything. As they approached Earth itself, the crew fell silent in collective shock. The blue-green world pulsed with energy signatures, its orbital space crowded with stations and vessels. Artificial satellites formed a complex web around the planet, while massive ships, clearly designed for war, moved in disciplined formations. Record everything, Meverek ordered. The High Command must see this. Back on Kar Prime, the Zafkari High Command viewed Meverek's intelligence with growing despair. Their entire empire, 7 systems built over 3 centuries of expansion, was dwarfed by humanity's 30-system federation, established in less than 2 centuries. How could we have miscalculated so severely? Supreme Commander Kareth demanded, his rage directed at the intelligence division. The chief intelligence officer's exoskeleton paled. The human outpost we destroyed was at the very edge of their territory. Supreme Commander, we had no way of knowing. You had one task. Kareth interrupted. Now we face an enemy of unknown strength who has already demonstrated the ability to strike at our core worlds. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Indomitable, Admiral Chen conducted a virtual war council. Holographic representatives from Mars Naval Command, the Jupiter Defense League, and the Colonial Marine Corps appeared around the conference table. The Zafkari thought us weak because they saw only our frontier, Chen explained, manipulating the battle plan with practiced gestures. We'll show them our core. Scientists presented their analysis of captured Zafkari technology, revealing critical vulnerabilities in their shielding systems. Engineers demonstrated new weapons specifically designed to exploit these weaknesses. Their ships use an unusual crystalline matrix in their power distribution systems, explained Dr. Miyazaki, Chief of Weapons Development. Our new quantum disruptors can target these matrices with unprecedented precision. This isn't just about vengeance for Proxima, Chen told her officers, her voice steady but resolute. This is about ensuring no species ever makes the same mistake again. Human diplomatic vessels jumped to systems neighboring Zafkari space, making contact with races that had suffered under the Imperium's expansion. The Velari, a peaceful aquatic species whose outer colonies had been annexed by the Zafkari decade earlier, eagerly provided strategic intelligence. The Imperium has many enemies, the Velari ambassador explained, his translucent fins rippling. But none have had the strength to challenge them, until now. As reports of human diplomatic overtures reached Kar Prime, Supreme Commander Reth realized a horrifying truth. The humans weren't just defeating them militarily, they were isolating them politically. For the first time in the Imperium's history, the Zafkari faced the prospect of total defeat. 3 months into the war, Supreme Admiral Reith stood on the command deck of the Imperious Mandate, the Zafkari's most powerful warship. Behind him, 40% of the Imperium's remaining fleet assembled for what their strategists believed would be a decisive counteroffensive. Our intelligence has identified a key human supply route through the Acturus sector, Reth announced to his assembled captains via holographic link. We will strike there, cutting off resources to their forward bases. The fleet commanders clicked their mandibles in affirmation, though Kareth noticed their enthusiasm seemed forced. 3 months of constant defeats had dampened the famous Zafkari military spirit. Today, we changed the course of this war, Kreth declared. Today, we remind these humans that the Imperium is not so easily defeated. The Zafkari fleet emerged from hyperspace at the designated coordinates, weapons charged and ready for battle. But instead of a convoy of human supply ships, they found empty space. Confusion rippled through the command deck. Sensor sweep, Kreth ordered. Find those supply vessels. Supreme Admiral, the sensor officer's voice wavered. We're detecting massive energy signatures emerging from behind the gas giant at coordinates 227 Mark 43. Kreth's compound eyes widened as Admiral Chen's trap was sprung. Human vessels appeared in perfect formation, surrounding the Zafkari fleet. Not supply ships, but warships, more than the Zafkari had faced in the entire conflict thus far. Aboard the UES Indomitable, Admiral Chen stood calmly on the bridge. All ships, execute Pattern Omega, she commanded. Human vessels moved with precision, sealing escape routes and targeting key Zafkari vessels. Launch boarding teams, she ordered. Primary target is the Zafkari flagship. I want their command structure intact. As the space battle raged, stealth dropships released elite human marines led by Colonel Marcus Winters onto the Imperious Mandate. Winters, a veteran of the Mars insurrection, led his team through the alien vessel's corridors, their adaptive armor adjusting to match the ship's environment. Remember, this is a capture mission. Winters reminded his squad as they encountered unexpected resistance from Zafkari warriors twice their size. We need their command deck intact. The Marines deployed adaptive tactics against foes who fought with rigid, predictable patterns. Lieutenant Rice, the team's technical specialist, accessed the ship's central database. Colonel, I'm finding something unusual here, Rice reported as Winters secured another junction. According to these internal communications, the attack on Proxima Colony wasn't sanctioned by the full Zafkari leadership. It was Commander Vexthal's independent decision. Winters processed this information as they approached the command deck. Store everything. We continue with the mission. After a brief but intense firefight, Winters and his team breached the command center. Supreme Admiral Reef fought with surprising skill, his ceremonial blade clashing against Winters' combat shield. But when his guards fell and humans surrounded him, the Zafkari leader recognized the futility of continued resistance. Why keep me alive? Kreth demanded as restraints were applied to his limbs. Because we're not who you think we are, Winters responded, securing the high-value prisoner. Meanwhile, on Care Prime, newly promoted War Director Vexthal received the devastating news of the fleet's defeat and Kreth's capture. Civil unrest was growing across the Imperium as resources dwindled under the human blockade. When junior officers questioned his original assessment of human capabilities, Vexthal had them publicly executed for treason. But the executions couldn't hide the truth, becoming impossible to deny. They hadn't just lost a battle. They had awakened a sleeping giant that was now methodically dismantling their empire. Aboard the UES Indomitable, Admiral Chen entered the specially designed interrogation chamber where Supreme Admiral Kreth awaited. The massive Zafkari leader sat in a reinforced chair, his compound eyes tracking her every movement. Despite his captivity, he maintained a dignified posture, his exoskeleton gleaming under the room's soft lighting. I expected torture, Kreth said, his translated voice surprisingly calm. Is that not what conquering species do? Chen took the seat across from him. If that's what you believe, you understand very little about humanity. For hours, they conversed, with Chen revealing historical footage. Humanity's bloody past, its world wars, followed by its unification, its expansion to the stars driven not just by conquest, but by curiosity and cooperation. You're not what we expected, Kreth finally admitted, studying Chen with compound eyes that missed nothing. Your species, your predators, yet you collaborate. You fight fiercely but show restraint. How is this possible? We learned from our mistakes, she explained. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we understood that cooperation makes us stronger than competition. Kreth leaned forward, his antennae twitching with what Chen had learned to recognize as intense interest. Perhaps that is the luxury of evolving on a resource-rich world. He revealed the truth of HFY society. Evolved as apex predators on a resource-poor world, their civilization prized aggression and territorial expansion as survival traits. "We fight because we must," Greth explained. "Resources determine survival. Territory means life." "There are better ways to acquire resources than conquest," Chen countered. "Ways that benefit all parties." Greth's mandibles clicked in what might have been skepticism, such as technology sharing, trade, cooperative development. Chen produced data on her tablet. "Our analysis shows your mining techniques extract only 60% of available minerals. We routinely achieve 85%. Something shifted in Karith's posture, a subtle change that registered as surprise. On Earth, the Defense Council debated their next move, with Karith's revelations changing the strategic picture. Council members from the hawkish Saturn colonies demanded total victory and occupation. Representatives from the peace-oriented Martian Confederacy argued for addressing the root causes of HFY aggression. "They attacked us," argued General Santos of the Saturn Defense Force. "We should dismantle their empire entirely." "And then what?" countered Ambassador Nilsson from Mars. "Create a power vacuum. Force a species into desperation." Admiral Chen, joining via secure holographic link, advocated for a middle path that stunned the Council with its audacity. "We demonstrate our overwhelming power, then offer them something they've never imagined. Partnership instead of subjugation." When skeptics questioned her approach, Chen projected images from Proxima Colony's destruction alongside footage of Earth's ancient conflicts. "We're fighting not because we're conquerors," Chen explained, her voice passionate but controlled. "We're fighting because they need to understand they can never win against us, and then we show them a better way forward." "You're suggesting we help the very species that attacked us?" questioned the Chinese representative. "I'm suggesting we transform an enemy into an ally," Chen replied. "Something far more valuable in the long term than merely defeating them." After hours of heated debate, the Council narrowly approved her unprecedented plan. A final, overwhelming show of force, followed by conditional peace terms that could transform HFY society itself. As the meeting concluded, President Okafor approached Chen's hologram. "You're taking a significant risk, Admiral. If this fails, then we can always return to conventional warfare," Chen finished. "But first, let's try something unconventional." The skies above Car Prime darkened as humanity's combined fleet arrived in a display of force designed to end the war decisively. Thousands of ships emerged from jump points surrounding the HFY homeworld, more vessels than the Imperium had built in its entire history. At the center of the formation was the captured HFY flagship, the Imperious Mandate, now repurposed as a command vessel for this final operation. War Director Vexthal stared in disbelief at the tactical display in his underground command bunker. His exoskeleton had paled to a sickly gray, his once proud posture now hunched with stress and fear. "How many?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Over 2,000 vessels, War Director," his tactical officer replied. "They've surrounded the planet. All orbital defenses are being systematically neutralized without destruction. They're disabling, not destroying." Before Vexthal could respond, communication systems across the planet activated simultaneously. The voice of Supreme Admiral Karith, broadcast from the captured flagship, echoed across every speaker and screen on Car Prime. "People of the Imperium," Karith began, his tone formal but urgent. "I speak to you from the human flagship. I am not a prisoner in the traditional sense, but a witness to truths we have long denied." Greth detailed the humans' overwhelming strength, their superior technology, and most shockingly, their offer of peace. He revealed Vexthal's unauthorized attack on Proxima Colony, the spark that ignited the conflict, and explained the human terms: immediate cessation of hostilities, war reparations for Proxima Colony, and supervise reformation of the Imperium into a cooperative state. They could destroy us all. Kareth's voice echoed across the planet. Instead, they offer us a path forward. In the command bunker, Vexthal watched as military units across the planet began standing down, responding to Kareth's authority rather than his own. With his position collapsing and the human armada overhead, he activated his final contingency, a doomsday weapon buried beneath the planetary crust, designed to destroy Kar Prime rather than allow its surrender. If the Imperium cannot have victory, he snarled to his few remaining loyal officers, then no one shall have our homeworld. Aboard the Indomitable, sensors detected the weapon's activation. Energy surge detected beneath the capital city, the tactical officer reported. Pattern matches theoretical planetary destabilization device. Admiral Chen turned to Colonel Winters, who was already moving toward the hangar deck. How long? 19 minutes until irrevocable planetary destruction, came the grim reply. We need to move now. Winters led a specialized strike team aboard a hypersonic dropship, which screamed through the atmosphere toward the coordinates of Vexthal's bunker. Anti-aircraft fire from Vexthal loyalists streaked past them as Lieutenant Reyes guided the craft through evasive maneuvers. Approaching drop zone, Reyes announced. Resistance heavier than expected. The dropship landed amidst the chaos of a Zathkari society fracturing between those accepting Kareth's surrender and those fighting for Vexthal. The strike team fought their way through the underground complex, their specialized weapons disabling rather than killing when possible. 14 minutes to detonation, Reyes reported as they reached the central security door. Breach it, Winters ordered, readying his weapon as the Marines planted charges. The massive door blew inward, revealing the central chamber where Vexthal stood before the Doomsday Device's control panel, his ceremonial blades drawn and his compound eyes blazing with fanatic determination. You're too late, humans, he hissed. I've already initiated the final sequence. You made a mistake, Winters told Vexthal, his voice calm despite the countdown blinking on his helmet display. Not attacking us. That was just arrogance. Your mistake was thinking we'd be anything like you. Vexthal lunged forward, ceremonial blades gleaming under the emergency lighting. Winters sidestepped with practiced precision, the product of years of combat training. The Zathkari commander was skilled but desperate, his movements betraying his panic. Lieutenant Reyes, the device, Winters ordered, engaging Vexthal in hand-to-hand combat. Everyone else, secure the perimeter. Reyes rushed to the control panel, her fingers flying across the alien interface as she connected her specialized decryption equipment. 12 minutes remaining, Colonel. The primary sequence is locked in, but I might be able to access the abort protocol. Vexthal laughed, a strange clicking sound as he circled Winters. The abort codes died with my loyal officers. Your species will never understand. Better extinction than submission. We don't want your submission, Winters countered, blocking a strike that would have severed his arm. We want your cooperation. Their battle continued across the chamber, two warriors from vastly different worlds testing each other's limits. When Vexthal momentarily gained the upper hand, pinning Winters against a support column, the colonel activated his armor's emergency countermeasure, an electrical discharge that sent the Zathkari commander staggering backward. 7 minutes, Colonel, Reyes called out. I've isolated the primary circuit, but can't bypass the final authorization. Vexthal recovered quickly, mandibles clicking in triumph. The authorization requires Zathkari Royal Genetic Code. You've lost, human. Winters smiled beneath his helmet. Actually, we came prepared. He pressed a communication button on his wrist. Admiral Chen, we need the package. A small teleportation field activated near Reyes, materializing a sealed container. Inside was a tissue sample taken from Supreme Admiral Grith during his medical examination aboard the Indomitable. Reyes quickly applied it to the scanner. Authorization accepted, the system announced in the Zathkari language. Deactivation sequence initiated. Vexthul roared in rage, making one final desperate charge toward the control panel. Winters intercepted him, the two commanders crashing to the floor in a final struggle. When they separated, Vexthul remained on the ground, a tranquilizer dart protruding from a joint in his exoskeleton. Deactivation complete. The system confirmed as the countdown froze at 2 minutes and 17 seconds. 6 months later, Admiral Chen walked through a transformed Car Prime. The former military parade grounds now hosted a diplomatic complex where representatives from 20 species, including former victims of Zathkari expansion, negotiated a stellar peace accord. Kareth, now leading the provisional Zathkari Republic, greeted her not as conquered to conqueror, but as partner to partner. Human engineers worked alongside Zathkari scientists, developing technologies to extract resources from previously unusable sources, addressing the scarcity that drove centuries of conflict. Your species continues to surprise me, Greth admitted as they toured a new atmospheric processing plant that would increase agricultural output tenfold. You could have destroyed us. Most Zathkari would have, in your position. Chen smiled. That's precisely why we didn't. In the maximum security wing of the new Geneva Detention Center on Earth, Vexthul, imprisoned but treated humanely, received an unexpected visitor, Colonel Winters. The Proxima colony is being rebuilt, Winters informed him, with Zathkari labor and technology as part of the reparations. Why come tell me this? Vexthul asked bitterly. Because you should know what your mistake led to, Winters replied. Not just defeat, but transformation. Your people and mine are now working together on ventures that benefit both species. He placed a data tablet showing the joint human Zathkari expedition to a newly discovered resource-rich system. You thought we'd destroy you, Winters said as he turned to leave. That's what you would have done. But humans don't just fight better than you. We win better than you. As news of the human Zathkari alliance spread throughout the galaxy, other species took note. The story would be told for generations, how a terrible mistake led not to extinction, but to an unprecedented partnership, and a warning to any civilization that might mistake human restraint for weakness.